The year 1324 in Kilkenny, Ireland, was not a time of myths or legends, but a time of cold stone, harsh winters, and very strict social rules. Life in this small merchant town revolved around two things: the church and money. Alice Kyteler was a woman who understood both perfectly. She was not a girl from a poor family. She was a sophisticated businesswoman who had built a massive fortune through 4 different marriages and a successful money-lending business. To understand her story, you must first understand that Alice was one of the wealthiest people in the region, and in the Middle Ages, a wealthy woman without a husband was often seen as a threat to the men who ran the world. The trouble did not start with magic, but with a very physical sickness. John Le Poer was Alice's 4th husband. Unlike her previous husbands, who had died and left her their lands and gold, John did not die quickly. Instead, he began to waste away in a very public and frightening manner. His hair fell out in large clumps. His fingernails became brittle and broke off. He grew so weak that he could barely stand, and his skin took on a gray, sickly color. In a modern world, we might suspect a specific type of poison, but in 1324, people looked for a spiritual cause. John's children from his previous marriages were already angry that Alice was set to inherit their father's fortune. They didn't just want her gone, they wanted her destroyed so they could keep the land for themselves. They took their complaints to the Bishop of Ossory, a man named Richard de Ledre. The bishop was not from Ireland. He was an Englishman who had spent much time in France, where the idea of heresy and secret devil-worshipping cults was becoming a popular way for the church to seize power. When the children told him that Alice was using charms to kill their father, the bishop didn't see a family feud. He saw a chance to make a name for himself. He saw a chance to prove that the church had the power to arrest even the richest citizens. The bishop ordered a secret investigation into Alice's home. This was not a trial with a jury, it was a search for physical proof of unchristian behavior. The men sent by the bishop pushed their way into Alice's grand stone house. They moved through the dining halls and the kitchens, tossing over furniture and ripping open storage chests. They weren't looking for gold, they were looking for the tools of a ritual. What they claimed to find in a large wooden chest became the foundation for the most famous trial in Irish history.
Inside the chest, investigators reported finding a series of items that sounded like a nightmare to the people of Kilkenny. First, there was a hollowed-out iron pipe. This wasn't a tool for plumbing or building. According to the bishop's records, the pipe was filled with a thick, black, oily grease. This grease was made from the most disgusting things imaginable: the fat of executed criminals, the hair of dead babies, and various poisonous herbs. They claimed Alice used this pipe to grease a wooden beam, which served as a focus for her dark intentions. Whether the grease was actually there or planted by the bishop's men, its discovery changed the mood of the town from curiosity to absolute terror. The second piece of evidence was even more strange: pieces of sacramental bread, the bread used in church services, but these pieces were stamped with the name of a demon. In the 1300s, messing with the holy bread was considered a crime worse than murder. It was an insult to God himself. The bishop used these items to tell the public that Alice wasn't just a murderer, she was the leader of a secret group that met at night to mock the church. He claimed she sacrificed 9 red roosters to a spirit at a crossroad, leaving the birds' bodies as payment for her dark powers. When the bishop tried to arrest Alice, he hit a wall he didn't expect. Because Alice was so wealthy and had so many business connections, she had friends in very high places. One of these friends was Arnold Lapoa, the seneschal, a high-ranking official of Kilkenny. When the bishop's men came to take Alice, Arnold stepped in. He didn't just stop the arrest, he actually arrested the bishop. He threw the Bishop of Ossory into a dungeon for 17 days. This was a massive scandal. It showed the entire town that Alice's money could buy her protection even from the church. While the bishop sat in his cold cell, Alice did not sit still. She knew that once the bishop was released, he would be even more furious. She used this time to organize her escape. She gathered her most portable wealth, her gold coins, her jewelry, and her deeds. She made plans to leave the country entirely. She was a woman of action, and she knew that the law in Ireland was moving against her. When the bishop was finally released, he was a changed man. He was no longer just a religious leader. He was a man seeking revenge for his time in prison. He demanded that Alice be brought to trial immediately. But when the guards arrived at her house, the heavy wooden doors were unlocked. The rooms were empty. The gold was gone. The fine clothes were missing from the wardrobes. Alice Kyteler had vanished into the night, likely heading to England or across the sea to Europe, where her wealth allowed her to start a new life under a different name.
She was never seen in Ireland again. The bishop was humiliated. He had a witch trial with no witch. To save his reputation and show the town that he was still in control, he turned his eyes toward the people Alice had left behind. He focused all his anger on Petronilla de Meath, Alice's loyal maidservant. Petronilla was the complete opposite of Alice. She was poor, she had no powerful friends, and she had no gold to bribe the guards. She was the perfect target. The bishop ordered Petronilla to be tortured. In the 14th century, the goal of torture wasn't to find the truth, it was to get a confession that matched what the bishop wanted to hear. They kept Petronilla in a dark, damp cell. They denied her sleep and food. They beat her until her spirit broke. Eventually, Petronilla told them exactly what they wanted. She confessed that she had helped Alice mix the dark grease in the iron pipe. She confessed that she had seen Alice fly through the air. She even confessed that she was the best witch in the world, second only to Alice herself. With this confession in hand, the bishop organized a public execution. He wanted the entire town of Kilkenny to watch, to ensure they knew the price of defying the church. On November 3, 1324, a tall wooden stake was built in the center of the town square. Piles of dry wood and straw were stacked around the base. The smell of wood smoke filled the air as the townspeople gathered in a thick crowd. Petronilla de Meath was led out of her cell. She was thin, bruised, and could barely walk. She was tied to the stake with thick ropes. As the bishop watched from a high platform, the fire was lit. The flames grew quickly, fed by the dry straw. Petronilla de Meath became the first person in Irish history to be burned at the stake for the crime of heresy and witchcraft. She died for a crime that most historians believe never actually happened. She died because her mistress was too rich to catch, and the bishop was too proud to lose. The trial of Alice Kyteler changed Ireland forever. It introduced the idea that magic wasn't just a village superstition, but a dangerous conspiracy against the church. It showed that the legal system worked differently for the rich than it did for the poor. Alice lived out the rest of her days in comfort, supported by the gold she had cleverly saved. Meanwhile, the bishop continued to hunt for witches for the rest of his life.
using the evidence of the grease and the pipe to terrify other families. Even today, the story of the iron pipe and the sacrificed roosters is remembered as a warning. It is a story about the intersection of greed, religion, and the vulnerability of the poor.
Alice Kyteler remains a shadow in history, a woman who used her intelligence and her wealth to beat a system designed to crush her, even if it meant leaving others to face the fire in her place.